Let's go, boy.
Elation and jubilation gamers from all around the world. I am Lucian and this is the World Gamer Show. And today I have a very special guest here with me, BRETT DOUVILLE, game developer with an incredible career that had a huge impact on some of the best games ever made, such as Skyrim, Fallout 3 and 4, and even cult classics from the Star Wars universe like Republic Commando and Starfighter. Thank you very much for being here, BRETT, and welcome.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So, me and BRETT already met once in Galway, in Ireland, in 2017 at the Galway Gaming Gathering.
Yes.
And really, BRETT, you've been the sweetest guy, and you even signed my copy of Fallout 4, so
I did.
Of course I wanted you on my channel. So thank you again for your time. I really appreciate it. Fallout 4 and 3, but let's start with 4, at least for now, because you also worked on that game. So what was your role there, and was it hard to work on the sequel of one of the most influential games ever, that was Fallout 3?
Yeah, I was the lead programmer on that for a year and a half to 2 years. I'm trying to remember the timeline, but around that amount. I mean, basically after Skyrim till September of 2013. So I took over all of the engineers for that project. There was so that included gameplay, the tools, and a few other. The graphics department had its. I mean, there were leads in some of these groups, but mostly people reported directly to me, which was maybe too much, honestly. That's a lot of. I had maybe 25 to 30 programmers, depending, who were reporting to me, which is just a lot, to be honest. But yeah. So one of the things that we thought about a lot was how to. Istvan Pelli, who was the lead artist on that, he's the lead artist for the franchise. He spent a lot of time figuring out the new look. We were challenging, we're rewriting the renderer. Even though we had done a rewrite for Skyrim, we were further rewriting it. That was a challenge that was coming. So there were challenges like that. There was also one of the big things that happens with any Bethesda game is that the world is such a big part of their appeal that there's a lot of figuring out how, does it feel to move through that space. And we also were doing, motion capture, I guess, for some of the critical scenes for the first time, facial animation capture and things like that. When that was new for us, we had really overhauled the face system for Skyrim, but then taking that the next step to further improve it into Fallout 4 was the thing that was going on. And then, of course, we were trying to find a way to let players basically edit the game in those settlements. That wasn't fully out of pre-production, I think, when I left, but it was getting close. So I saw it kind of in its early days. I haven't gone back to play that game. I didn't play it after it came out. And one of the reasons is that we always start with basically character generation, and the first experience after that, we don't really start with card gen. We really start with, okay, after you leave character generation, then what would you do? And you go out, you go into that little place, that little town where, you had started the game, and then you would go down into, I guess, Concord or something. I can't remember the names of the places because it's been 10 years, but, and then you would go down there and you meet the Deathclaw and you get the power armor and all of that stuff. I guess the power armor is another thing that was a big part of the game that we had done a lot of pre-pro on. I have played that experience. I'd never played it after it shipped, but I played it hundreds of times before it shipped, and so it's really, really hard to go back. So sometimes it's hard to remember, because what was in the game and what wasn't in the game. But those are some of the big things.
Save file of the post game, basically. So
yeah,
you can finally skip your part.
No kidding. Yeah, it's pretty wild. I would need something like that. I don't know. Maybe I'll get far enough away from it someday, because I really loved Fallout 3. coming in very late, the game was basically finished, in a lot of ways. I mean, there's lots of polish and bugs to fix and things like that. That's what we were doing, performance to improve. But coming in so late, I kind of, had the opportunity to kind of just get in and play it a lot. I mean, that's what Todd wanted me to do, was just like play this a whole bunch. Have you played the other games? Tell me what you think. And I was like, sure, it's not Fallout 2D, but man, it's very Fallout. It really felt that way to me, and that was kind of the big thing to keep going in Fallout 4. Was the most important thing, was to try to find some new areas to explore more. Power armor was a big part of that. The settlements, were a big part of that. More customization and options for the player. And then I guess the other thing was to, and this I wouldn't have been involved with much at all at the time, but with some of the factional stuff. I think there's basically 4 factions, and you're kind of like negotiating your relationship with those. So I think those were kind of the big things that were changing.
Right, and it was also the first Fallout for the newer machines.
Correct. Yeah. We were also porting. Yeah, we were also
PS3.
Porting to a new generation. Yep, that's right.
So,
yep.
While Skyrim was cross-gen.
Yes.
Well,
Skyrim was not. Skyrim was full on the previous generation, and then was quickly ported because it was fairly easy to port forward. Fairly easy. But we originally started Fallout 4 keeping the previous machines in mind, so the PS3 and the Xbox 360. Where originally we're going to support, and that was a real challenge. Now that you mention it, because it was, any console generation jump is a big one. It's easy to move forward, but it's hard to maintain. Starting with a target of the new generation to maintain the old generation, kept that up for a while. But I think by the time I left, they were talking about dropping it, or maybe we had already decided not to support the PS3 and the 360.
I think it was the right decision. And I think that another thing that was at least expanded on is the companion, and especially my favorite, Dogmeat.
Dogmeat.
Who has a much more prominent role compared to
That's true, yeah.
previous games. So I'm a pet person myself, so I obviously loved it, and I was too afraid that he would get hurt. So I wasn't even using him so much, but it really got me anxious at some point. So my question is, whose idea was it, and are you a dog or even a pet person yourself?
I mean, I don't have pets now because I like to be able to travel. And as a divorced dad, my kids are grown, like I can travel pretty easily, but that's less easy if you have a pet around. So the real genesis of that was Joel Burgess, who had a German Shepherd called River. Sadly, River died maybe 3 years ago. Joel brought River into the office. We did mocap with River. He introduced River, to a lot of the team. So Dogmeat, in the game really is River in a lot of ways. The name comes from the original game. There was a Dogmeat in the original game, and before that, it was in a movie called A Boy and His Dog, which is a kind of a cult science fiction movie with Don Johnson, who had a telepathic German Shepherd. I think it was a German Shepherd. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Anyway, he was in Fallout, the previous Fallout games. So yeah, it really came from Joel. Joel was the lead level designer on Fallout 4, and he really was pushing forward that feature and worked a lot with Jean Simonet, who had worked for me in the systems group, who did all the pathing stuff to kind of really make his animation come alive and make him navigate the world in a believable way. And a lot of that stuff was really well developed by the time I left.
Okay, nice. Speaking of the previous Fallout, did you play any of the games before?
I did.
Which one?
1 and 2. I played both 1 and 2. I think I would say I prefer 1 just because it's manageable size. 2 is very, very large. And in fact, I'm not sure I've ever finished 2. I remember playing to a certain point where I couldn't get in. There was some major town. I don't remember the details because it's quite a while ago now. But I got to this place where you needed a utility object, a utility tool or something to open the sewer grate to get in, and I had sold that utility tool, for bottle caps at some point, and so I couldn't get through that point, and I was really frustrated, and I didn't have whatever other skills I would need to get in, and I kind of got a little stymied. And then I played it again some years later, having forgotten that, and then did exactly the same thing. And I said, you know what, this game I probably just won't ever finish.
It's so hard to go back to these games after some
sometimes,
time.
yeah, sometimes. We played the original Fallout for the podcast for Dev Game Club, and we talked to I'm gonna forget their names. We talked to nope, it's gone. I don't have it right now, but day after Thanksgiving here. But we talked to the two sort of the lead programmer and the lead artist, and it was a great conversation. It was really, really fun to kind of go back to. And I find that game very manageable, but Fallout 2 is much bigger, and a little bit, there's so many things to chase. And I'm also a completist, like when I play games, I like to get everything, and that's really, really hard with some of those older RPGs. So, it's just hard for my brain, even though those are games that I loved, all of those, sort of the era of the Infinity Engine, even though Fallout
I think The Elder Scrolls also has these problems in which the 2D games are like outrageously bigger than the newer ones. So
the oldest games.
Because of the fact that they were 2D, it was maybe, I don't know, easier to make them expand the world beyond,
But they leaned a lot more into procedural generation, I think, right, in the oldest titles, right? And so, and they felt really a lot emptier, this is kind of dialed in to be the right size now, I think, in terms of how big the worlds are.
Yeah. And that really wraps it up. I want to thank again Brett, and of course, guys, keep playing all these awesome games he worked on. They made history, and I'm glad that Brett took be with us today, sharing that history. So really, thank you again.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And guys, before you go, just a reminder to like, subscribe, do all the yada yada. This way I can bring you more content, better content, just like this interview here, and you will be up to speed with my latest videos. So it's a win-win, it's free, hit the subscribe button. But really, I just want to thank you so much for sticking to the end of this video. I will be seeing you in my next one, but until then, stay safe, play safe, world gamers.